Hi, everybody. My name is Richard.lesperance, and I go by the name of My Man Richard. Welcome to A Better Lifestyle. Today, we're going to talk about raising money for your business by using angel investor. So I have a serial entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur with me. His name is Tyler Horsley. And he's going to share some insights and give us some education in regards to angel investing. So please, Tyler, tell everybody who you are, a brief resume of who you are in 2 minutes, and we'll get started.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I have built and sold about four companies in the last 5 years. All that originated when I founded a company called Nuclear Networking. And so I first and foremost started learning and getting into the angel investing space as I created capital through marketing. And there's a lot of different ways that you can help companies that you're investing in. But one of the ways that I found, and the way that I'm kind of here, is in addition to just capital, giving companies marketing experience and kind of the keys to success, what to do, how to grow, kind of gave me an edge that all parties appreciated. And so I'm currently the CEO at Nuclear Networking here in Denver, Colorado. And we create capital. It's private equity owned. And then we deploy that capital into, other companies, angel investing opportunities, private equity investing as well. So yeah, that's a little about me. 30,000 foot view. So.
Okay. Because I had an episode before on venture capital.
Sure.
What's the difference? What are the differences between venture capital and angel investor?
Sure. Yes, there's a lot of different types of channels of investment. One of the most common is basically like private equity, angel investing, venture capital, and then you can even do some family office. And so just kind of going through those four real quick. So family office is typically if collective, as it sounds, family or maybe an inheritance needs to be redeployed. There's a certain amount of capital. It's typically family owned, but they start an office and then they hire individuals within that office to invest in companies and help basically grow the wealth. So that is actually fairly close to something like private equity, where I work now. Basically, we have a fund, so a certain amount of money, in the bank, so to speak. And then with that fund, we deploy that money into real estate, company investments, and more. But in private equity, how that differs from like venture capital and angel investing, private equity is typically a little bit more hands-on, right? So they're going to be the investors will actually be in the company at a board seat level, on an advisor level, maybe rotating people, if things aren't working, putting a new CEO in or a new COO, these types of things. They're a little bit more hands-on in the act of trying to get these companies to grow. Venture capital. So I always think of like Silicon Valley when I think of VC and VC funds. Essentially, usually they collect or they raise outside capital. So they'll go out to all these other investors and say, hey, give us X, Y, and Z. Here's what we're going to do with your money. And kind of the rule of thumb in the VC world, and this may have changed, but as far as I remember it, it's like they might go out and invest in 10 different, companies. And it's important for them to spend that money because they just raised it from other people. So they have to deploy the capital. And so typically out of 10 companies, they hope all of them succeed, but they really need like 2 to 3 of them to hit really well. And statistical likelihood, some of those companies might fail. And so to me, that's more of a, let's hurry up and invest and empower tons of companies and just see which ones succeed and see which ones, it's an educated gamble, right? And so taking outside capital and investing in companies, angel investing is, as I have been practicing, a little bit more passive. And so as an example, you might have startups. So one of the latest startups that I invested in was a roofing company out east in the United States. It's in the Virginia area. And essentially, that's writing a check. And so you're writing a check to founders and people that are going to create this thing. And certainly, I know what's going on. I see the P&Ls, look at the business plan. I believe in the people, but I'm not in the day-to-day. I'm not jumping on board meetings, often telling them how to run their business or what to do. It's more of an alternative investment source. So try to figure out how to rank those, but maybe from like completely hands off to working in the day to day, I'd rank them exactly in that reverse order, right? It's like angel investing, venture capital, private equity, and family office.
How many deals have you done in the past in regards to angel investing?
Sure. So I would consider some of the real estate stuff I do, I would still consider angel investing. And so what that looks like is, again, the way that I kind of see the definition is essentially, more of a passive investment stream, if you will, just kind of cutting checks. So with real estate involved, I've probably done 8 different major real estate deals and when I say that, I'm not talking like a residential home. I'm talking, apartment complex, opportunity funds as well. Land development deals where they're basically starting with a plot of dirt, bulldozing everything, putting in, sewer, electrical, city and more, and then building on top of that, entire mini malls and apartment complexes. So I've had quite a variety of experience in that space, probably eight different larger deals that are non single family or residential related to businesses, probably 13. And then 3 of which I was heavily involved and have already built and sold those 3. And then the others I've invested in other founders and they're running that, company in the background for me. So.
Have you had more wins than losses or?
So far, man. Yeah. Right. Knock on wood. And I'll tell you one thing. And I'm sure everybody who's listening can, for one, like what we haven't chatted about, because we jumped directly to angel investing and more, is like the 5 years of absolute pain and agony of being broke and starting a company from nothing and trying to make money without being able to get loans, and then finally making some money and then redeploying that capital into one thing that worked, and then doing that over and over and over again, kind of being a good steward of finance and trying to multiply that. So far, all of my investments have returned more than I have put in, other than the United States stock market that I've lost massive amounts of money in, and almost lost money in one of the court reporting deals that we were in just because COVID hit. And so I would say that deleting outside factors like who's the president or who's running the country or economic circumstances based on a pandemic, which I don't think a lot of us saw coming, outside of like the acts of God and the craziness that you can't forecast, most of the investments return quite well. But, that could all change tomorrow, depending on the swipe of a pen on a paper, depending on who's running the country. So, yeah.
So what do you look for when to invest? What are some of the stuff that you look for?
Sure. Yeah. So on the angel investment side, like typically most angel investors, I mean, that speaks to like early stage companies, right? And so I still look at, I actually try to invest in people before companies. And so what that means is, instead of just going out and saying, hey, here's a great idea, let's hire for it, I look for people who have really quality work ethic. That was where I was raised. Like a lot of people farm, it's very agricultural. And so I can tell you, like, I've had a full-time job since I was 12. I sound like my parents, like I walked uphill to school both ways, like people say this when they were younger to communicate how difficult it was. But like, I remember getting up before 6 and going out and like feeding and watering the horses when it's -12 below, and like just different things that like people who have grown up on a farm who have any livestock, like those types of things would make sense. Less sense, obviously, if you don't have that experience, but the people aspect that I've learned kind of outweighs ideas. So if you have somebody who's relentless, they have really quality work ethic and they share similar values. And what does that mean? Well, I would say basic values, like, are they honest people or are they going to steal everything from you when you're not looking, right? I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but it's like, do they have another group of people or a thing that they're working for besides themselves? Like, do they have a family? Do they have kids? Do they have a cause or a purpose? Like, is there something behind why they're working, or is it just all about them? And so I look for those things, because typically when times get hard, which they almost certainly always do, those extra motivators really help people continue to push through, versus if they're just kind of out for themselves, they can quit quickly. And if I'm not going to be involved in running the company at an early stage, I just want to make sure that the investment's in trustworthy hands. So people first, ideas second. And so I guess the larger returns and the best places to typically start, and the most risk, because usually the more reward you can get, that the risk correlates with that. Things can get more risky if you're going to get a bigger reward, and things that are a little less risky, like real estate, you get less of a reward. You make far less money, but it's a little safer, right? Especially through economical inflation and those types of things, like owning assets is helpful. But I've built and sold anything from marketing companies to hot tub companies to federal court reporting and supplement companies. It's pretty much whatever I can learn exists online, because I have access to some tools and some data sets. Since I work in marketing, I can tell you, here's how many people are looking for what you're selling in your area. This is a good investment, or it's not, and so that's kind of the tool that I use to start that process.
What if someone is looking for an angel investor? What are some of the things that they should think about before approaching an angel investor?
Sure. So what and for anybody listening, I definitely write some of this stuff down, because I'll go quick. But when you're going to fundraise for a company, which is typically why you would pitch to an angel investor, right? You have a company idea, or you have something that you've proven out, but you need more finance to grow it further because you can't fund it yourself. There's what's called a marketing packet. So as an example, like when companies go to sell, on the other hand, they have a CIM, a confidential information memorandum. And it's basically like a pitch deck or a PowerPoint deck. Here's your company. Here's about you. Here's about your company. Here's why you think it works. What data you've collected so far. Meaning, like, if I invest in companies, I kind of like to see the founders have done it on their own already. It's like, look, I already put my own money in, my own sweat and tears and hard work, and I proved this out and it works. I just need more money to actually grow it from here to here, right? And so when I see those types of companies, I have a lot more trust in the ideas, because they're kind of already proven, and the founder believes in them so much that they've done it themselves before asking for money, right? Versus somebody who's like, hey, I have an idea, I've never done it before, can you write a check? Those are less likely to be funded. And so that's just something that I guess, just summarizing all of that, I would really deeply think about the business, why you believe it's going to work, put some of your own money behind marketing to prove it out and show that you can drive leads with marketing and that this thing works. Like, put some of your own money, because it'll speak volumes to the investors. And then everything that you've learned, I would journal that and put it on paper. And then before you go raise money, I would YouTube, how to put together an angel investor deck, or how to raise money from angel investors. And just, there's kind of a map of how you do this, right? And it's a little, like I said, about your company, about you and everyone on your team, about the market in general. Like, does the market need this? And then individual case study of you spending money and seeing it work. And then what you're going to raise and by how much. And the last thing I'd say to pair with that, and YouTube goes a long way, podcasts like yours go a long way for learning. I would also say, like, do anything you possibly can to find a mentor who's already raised money with angel investors. And the way that you can do that, if you're located in the States, the SBA, the small business here, basically they have local representatives in each state that you can actually reach out to for small business help. And you can just ask them. Another thing you could do is go to like a local business group. I would just start Googling these things, reach out to people on LinkedIn, offer, hey, if I give you a $30 Starbucks gift card or something, like, would you be willing to talk to me for an hour? And just, I'm trying to learn about angel investing and you'll get so much great information. And you just want to make sure that you have all that packaged up in a bow when you go to raise money. So you look trustworthy, right? So That's what I would focus on.
What are some mistakes that you see people do when they want to raise money?
A couple, I guess, things that I have made. I'll just talk about my mistakes. For one, if you get that mentor who's going to help you, keep that relationship sacred. So don't ask them for money. They're already giving you education. You want to build a friendship and you want to learn. And a lot of people, and I'm nowhere near wildly successful, I'm just getting started, but like a lot of people who have been doing this for 20, 30, 40 years, they have a lot of knowledge, and getting that knowledge and having that relationship is really going to help you avoid speed bumps, really expensive mistakes. And it'll, accelerate your learning by 30 years, as much as you're willing to put into it. So I would just say, keep those relationships sacred, because if you ask them for money, they're going to stop taking your calls. You know what I mean? And so it just gets weird. It's kind of like your family or your friends. You don't want to be the guy always asking somebody for money. So just try to separate those things out and have relationships that are sacred, that you only learn from, you never ask from. And then the second thing is, this is the hard part, but this is why you need a mentor. Again, it's like when you go to raise money, people aren't there to loan it to you. They're there to take part of your company. That's how you raise money. That's angel investing. And so I've seen founders come out of the gate like, I have the best idea in the world. I need to raise $2 million and I'll give you 1% of my company. No one's going to give you a check. It's not real. You know what I mean? It's, you have 100% of a great idea and 0% revenue, right? And so you're selling a dream. You're not selling a real company in some sense. And so I would say on both sides, get an educated perspective, either through an investment banker or through your mentors, of how much do you think this idea is worth? What do you think I should be offering in terms of equity for this raise? Know your value, right? Know the true value, like true market value, so that you don't get taken advantage of and give away all your company early, but you also don't try to ask for too much. And those two perspectives are super important. And those are mistakes you can avoid.
How do you, when it comes to the contract, how do you set up a contract with an angel investor? Do they have a say in the company, or how does it work?
Yeah, so pretty much, I would say, so there's a lot of fancy terminology and a lot of, you could do options, warrants, equity, like debt. There's a lot of different vehicles, is what they call them, ways to do business together. But at a super high level, any listener thinking about raising money from an angel, any rules that both parties agree on are good. And so that means that one deal might be different from the next. If you meet somebody who has a lot of wealth and they believe in you as a person and they just want to give you a shot, they're probably going to ask for a lot less. And they may not even care about voting rights or anything like that. They just want to help you. But if you're meeting somebody who is trying to make a lot of money on you, they're going to want to be involved. And if they don't trust you, or they've had a bad experience in the past, they might come to your company and, hey, let me see your financials, this, that, and the other. And so I guess what I always tell people is, be careful who you take money from, because on both sides, obviously, you don't want to take money from somebody who just kills your spirit, micromanages you every day, and kills that creative aspect, because then your job and your free spirit of creating a company or whatever it is you're trying to achieve, that becomes really sad. Like every day you're stressed out, right? The other thing I'd look at is, you can get money from anywhere. Now, it doesn't mean that it's easy. And if you don't have a good idea, or if you think you have a good idea and nobody's giving you money, ask them why. Like, genuinely be like, can you please be brutally honest with me and tell me why you don't invest in here so I can go fix this, right? And if you have people that you trust telling you, like, I just don't trust you, I don't believe in your idea, here's why, take that constructive criticism and go back to the drawing board and see if you can answer those questions, and then try it again and again. But what I've learned is, if you're going to go raise money, a lot of people have money. Look for strategic investors. And so what that means is, as a marketing company, if I were to go raise money tomorrow, I wouldn't just go to somebody with wealth. I would go to somebody who also maybe has another company that works with 100 other businesses, because businesses are my customers, right? And if that investor gives me a check, that investor is going to be incentivized for his money to grow or her money to grow. And so what they're naturally going to do is go, oh man, I have this other company. Maybe all of my 100 companies could use your marketing. And now everything grows, right? And so I always try to, find strategic investors and just make sure that who you're taking money from can add value, not stress. So
what can be the ROI on the return on investment for the angel investor?
So that depends on quite a few factors. It depends on how much you put in, at what stage you put money in, and likely has a lot to do outside of the success of the company, which, if the company fails, that's the answer. But it also has a lot to do with the industry. So I'll give you a couple different examples. On real estate deals, there are a couple different ways to invest. There's a GP, so you can invest as like the general partner, or there's an LP, which is the limited partner, loan partner. There's variations, but what that means is, like, if you're the general partner, typically, back to that rule, the higher the return, the higher the risk. So if you're a general partner on a deal, you might actually sign for a loan to create an apartment complex. Even though you didn't put all the money in, your name's on that paper. So if that thing dumps or falls, you're on the line with a bank, because like your name's on it, right? But if you're certain that investment is going to grow and you have the opportunity to invest as a general partner, your returns are going to be preferred. Like, you get all the first returns because you took the most risk, right? And then second from that, limited partners, these the LPs, essentially, as they invest, they take less risk. They're not on the paperwork at all, other than the initial investment agreement. So if they, if the whole thing goes kaput and goes down the drain, you're not personally liable for all of the credit and more that's on that building, but your return is a lot less. So that's real estate. So that's just at what stage you get in and how much you put in will determine kind of where you're at there. Separate from that, the way that companies are calculated is quite a bit different. And so if you were to go sell a home tomorrow in the States here, they would pull comps. So that just means they're going to look at what every other home around you kind of sold for, and then they're going to weigh that into, these homes sold for 800,000 or 500,000. So your home kind of looks like those. So your home should kind of sell for this too. That's essentially what they're doing. And so in the business world, if you're selling a marketing companies, they're going to pull comps. Like, what do other marketing companies sell for? And what you very quickly learn in the angel investing world is there's different multiples on adjusted net profit, or EBITDA. May not be using, I don't know, everybody tracks with some of that language, but basically, if you run $100 business, you make $100 a year, and $10 of that is profit. We'll use this math. If it's a service company like marketing, a car wash, something like that, most of those companies sell for 3 to 6 times EBITDA, or adjusted net profit, which is, all fanciness aside, that $10 that you made profit, multiply it times 3 or times 6. So your company is worth $30 to $60. However, if you and I had a company that was a software of service company or an AI company, so software platform, and we made $100 a year and $10 was profit, those companies, because they rely far less on humans to run them, those sell for 10 to 30 times adjusted net profit. So now you're like, holy cow, man. Like, if it's a service company making the same amount of money, it only sells for $30. If it's a software company making the same amount of money, it could sell for $300. So you start thinking about that as an investor. It's like, I know that I could put in the same amount of money and the same amount of work, but certain types of companies are worth more than others, even if they make the same amount of money. And so those are things that I really look at. So what is the ROI? It really depends on all those different factors. You're more likely to have a higher return on investment if you're investing in software or AI, but you have greater risk as well, right? So.
Last words in regards to everything we talked about in, let's say, in 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'd say last words is like really listen, just consume information. Like, what did you say? My man Richard over here, like listen to his podcast, consume podcasts like these and YouTube channels like these, where you can learn how do people invest, what's a realistic return, what are the best, like just you have a lot of free education online. This is a prime example of that. Whereas back in the day, this was limited knowledge. You had to go get an MBA or become an investment banker or do A, B, and C. Like there's so much free information. Anybody can learn this stuff. And if you know the language, like that's going to help you go so far. If angel investing is even important to you. Some of these deals that I've sold, I've negotiated our own sale price because I knew the lingo. And I talked about discretionary earnings and adjustments and what to do and how to look at these things. And so knowledge is power. I know it's cheesy, but I would learn as much as you possibly could. That would be, and get really solid mentors in your life.
Where can people find you on social media or the internet?
Sure. Yeah. So you can email me directly, tyler@nuclearnetworking.com. I'm on LinkedIn as well. And those would probably be the two best places to connect.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Tyler, for being here. And it's one of the topics too I wanted to touch, angel investing. I did, like I said before, I did an episode on venture capital. So I guess it wraps it up maybe for the year.
Sure.
For raising money, so people have some tools, some knowledge to go forward. So thanks a lot for being here, and it was nice meeting you and talking to you. On that, thanks. On that note, thank you everybody for taking the time to listen to this podcast. Welcome to A Better Lifestyle. My name is Richard.lesperance, and I was with Tyler Horsley. And we'll see you on the next episode, everybody. And bye. Thanks, Tyler.
Thank you.
No problem. Thanks.